So we have Max is here, Torben's here, Albert's here. Only 1 week to go. Max, are you having a birthday? And Anro is here. Albert says a Warhammer game mode that uses a squad of guys instead of a company or battalion. Is this the kill team thing? I just missed it on my live chat. And Susan's here. It's snowing and raining here in Adirondacks, and the Nalbinding continues inside. Okay, well, I'm outside and Karl's getting set up inside. I was thinking about walking down the path here outside the house, but we'll see if we can get beyond that gate. But hopefully you can hear me okay. I wanted to send from the village today because it's nice and bright, but we wouldn't get a ride back, so. Summer in Belgium for a day. Oh, we're damn near close to summer here now. I can see the nature in the video. Going for a walk just a little bit, yeah. I thought I have to show you outside because now the only reason we're inside is because we needed a ride home. And there was nobody that was going later today. So I thought I'll show you outside a bit by where we live, and then we can do the second half indoors where Karl is. But yeah, you can see the river's raging a bit. It's actually been higher than this before, but it's because the snow on the mountains is melting now. You can see straight up there, there's a little bit of snow that we can view, but it goes higher backwards and there's even more. But all of that has been melting. This, by the way, is the avalanche that they're reinforcing. It hasn't fallen down yet, but they think the avalanche is looking pretty pregnant and due for a burst. So they've been putting up those fences along the way there that we looked at a bit ago. Let's see, we'll zoom out again though. Garcia's here and PJ's here. What stitch are we focusing on for next month? Any suggestions? I have a couple ideas, but I can't give it away. I don't know if you remember this from last time, but the retaining wall here is really quite cool, and it's pretty old. So this was one of my favorite things to see. Imagine trying to piece all that together with far crappier equipment than we have now, and you can see it keeps going. You've added to your gray pile, says Albert. Today we have, well, it's April, so we have, for Autism Awareness Month, we went with rainbow colored yarn, and then the stitch, we were calling it Tybrind Vig, but it's actually simple looping around a core based on the find from Tybrind Vig. So good to know. Let's see, we have a lot of Freemen arriving, so every once in a while I get a message on my chat saying they've arrived. I think I can get through here. The farmer puts this up because they don't want people, no fishing, no camping, and do not let your dog go wild. There's also a sheep back there. But if you notice, there's a color change in the rock here. Last time we came here, there was a huge avalanche, and I can't get in there, yay. And let's see, I'll turn that this way a minute so we can lock the gate. Oops, I do not want to fall down there. Ta-da! I can't get the thing over the... There, we've got it. Okay. So yeah, you can see that the rain is still pushing stuff down the mountains. All that is avalanching. But all this white rock, this is stuff that is newly or recently broken off from up there. But you can see that it's still coming down. I think this avalanche was probably a couple of weeks ago, but it's still bringing down sticks and stuff with it, which makes it not the most pleasant thing to walk on, if you have a depth perception there. But I didn't remember it hitting that close to home. It might be because when the farmers come through, they clear out this path a bit. And you can see all the rock that came down last time. Oh yeah, we're not getting far. Has been kind of spread out a bit on the path. But you can see a lot of loose rock. Let's see. It's a little quieter here. So let me know if you can't hear me too well. I got the microphone on, so it should help. Here's another path that was created from an avalanche. This looks more recent, though. I don't remember this being here last year when we came out. My, oh my, let's focus on this month's stitch first. Half a month left. Well, everybody always wants to get a little leg up, but I got to come up with something that's a little challenging. It's something maybe we haven't done in a while. Whew. As you can see, it goes all the way down to the river, too, making it a bit uneasy to walk. But my mom bought me orthopedic shoes, so we've got this. That's the shoes I got from my mom in October. I'll see how far we can go. If the link starts getting crappy, I'll turn around. Still got a bit of a cough. But now it's just a spasm here or there, and then it kind of goes away. Karl sounds much better, though. I'm a couple days behind him, so my future's looking bright. There you can see all that new scraped white rock up there. That's all avalanche down. It's the water that gets in there, and then it freezes, and then in the summer it kind of thaws, and it just poof. There was a lot more that fell down than I was aware of, though, now that I look at it. Then, of course, there's still some snow up there. But yeah, all the freemen are starting to return now because winter goes on Easter vacation. So the first batch has started arriving today. There's a couple of freemen that have been here earlier since the beginning of the month, fighting and killing tourists for pleasure. That's always fun, but the tourists are allowed to try to kill them too. With rubber swords. And then we have, I think we're gonna have a total of 22 kids and maybe 45 freemen altogether this month. So I'm really looking forward to seeing life in the village again for the first time since Christmas. PJ says, I like this stitch. It's really easy to add a new thread. I cut a length from the core thread, and that becomes my working thread, and I add a new color as the core. That's a really good way of doing it. Yes, I forgot to ask, how do you like this stitch? Tybrind Vig is based on the Tybrind Vig find. There you can see that avalanche, how much bigger it is, the one they're worried about. That goes to the road. But simple looping wrapped around a core is probably the better way of saying it. Nella points out that it's actually not called the Tybrind Vig stitch. Torben says, I met Vikings today, German-speaking Vikings and Vikings from Oslo, and I chased them away with the hose. That's how you deal with Vikings. Now repeat after me, Torben, get off my lawn. Why did you chase them off with a hose? Tell me the story. One of these days we're going to film walking home, but that will probably have to be an offline thing because we lose connection somewhere about halfway on the trip. The coverage is really bad. There's the avalanche we saw last year. PJ says, I did put a photo of my variant on the Discord group. Oh, I saw I was tagged. I will check that when I can. Release the hounds, says Torben. I like trees that are not growing quite straight. You see a lot of those in the valley here because of the avalanches will push them sideways and then they kind of try to grow back up again. But also, I noticed trees in the mountain area are a little bit more stunted than trees in the flat area. So you can see all these trees look young. But yeah, all of this we had trouble walking over last year, if you remember. So it's been flattened out a bit. But there's some new water coming down. It's just not bringing all the big rocks with it. And then there's another view of the culprit. Let's see if I can zoom in on him. For now, it's a waterfall. But there's actually two more avalanches nearby here. That's one, and that's the bigger one. Those two are the ones that usually combine and hit the road. E16, you can actually see that one better through here. Oops. There we go, now I can see. There you can see this. It'll either start up at the side, there, and then the rest, or it'll come down through here and down. But we'll see it when we turn around a bit. Sun is still up. It's right there. So summer's coming. But yeah, no real excuse to shoot indoors anymore, except for the fact that we were lazy, need a ride home, and the backyard is nothing but moss-covered rocks and mountain. Let's see, PJ says, you think I'd be able to type properly by now, but no. In my last book, I had something called Dread Thorns. They look like the leafless dead trees, but they can walk in search of fertilizer. They prefer blood. Is that where your trees come from? Maybe something like this? Because they're getting closer and closer to the house. I did not realize that most recent rock slide was that close to the house. So probably need to up the insurance a bit. But there you can see it's all coming down from there, and then some of it comes this way. That big rock has been there for a while, so it's going around it, thank God. And then you can tell it's newer because it's really loose, this rock. See? It's not packed down. But they're trying to straighten it out. So how many likes do you think I get if I get hit by an avalanche while sending live? What we won't do. Let's see. Karsten and Dodo here from Flensburg. And there's Norway, or the rock slides year round or mostly in the winter? Mostly in the spring, I want to say. Anywhere from late February, depending on how warm the season gets, to easily the end of April. Because most of it is caused by the snow falling down on its own with melting, or the ice melting and falling down. But you can get them in the winter as well when the water that's gotten into between the cracks of the rock, if it starts to freeze and expands, then it'll also push out some rock. And then, of course, any heavy rain. So you can get them in the summer. If there's any heavy rain, it'll take down rocks with it. It'll look like a waterfall, but it'll be very muddy for a little while. Let's see. There was a little runoff path there. It's actually not too bad walking here. We've been mainly walking in the road, though. There you can see how close that avalanche goes into the road. And every year there's a few rocks that fall off on it. And it doesn't have to be a massive landslide to do damage. It just has to be one rock the size of a bowling ball. And if you hit it with your car, that will definitely do some damage to your system. And it doesn't even have to be a rock. It could be ice. But they're still putting that fence up all along this whole thing. So it'll be interesting to see how many rocks it catches. And there's a little size comparison. You've got a crane over there. So the best time to visit is laugh out loud. You're okay as long as you're in the village anyway. Don't live where I live, that's for sure. And keep an eye on the road and keep an eye on the mountain when you're driving. But best time to visit, of course, would be the midsummer, but then again, you're gonna have a lot of traffic because everybody's on vacation all over the world and they're all coming to Gudvangen. Winter's a great time too, but it's cold and it's dark. But if you like solitude, that's a great time to come. Winter Wonderlandish. There you can see the rock slide from last year, and it has been flattened out here now. That one was about actually 1 year ago today, right before Easter. And then it went all the way down into the river. So I believe Karl and I walked this far last time, and this part here was so loose. Yeah, we did. It was so loose and built up a bit that we didn't want to walk much further. I won't walk much further than this today, though, because I don't know how far the link will reach before it starts cutting. Because the mountains there, being this close, are not very good for cell, whatever, Wi-Fi, decking coverage. Yeah, and then this is where we got last time. You can see it's been gouged out again. So it's hard to see the depth perception of it, but it's like a ravine. And then it splits, it gets like this big. And goes down there. So for that tree, I'm probably about as tall as that branch, to give you an idea of how tall that is. Max says, I remember when one of the people who was born with no arms and hands, and they actually write with their foot. I find it very strange and fascinating, which I always thought, how did they do it? Oh, there's some really cool documentaries on there. There's this lady that was born with no arms, and she's got kids, and she manages to take care of them, brush their teeth, put their diapers on, everything, all with just her feet. I'm impressed, and I sit there and complain. about my limitations. I got nothing on that woman. There you can see the big rocks that can come down. Big ones. That rock there is about the size of a small car. But it's a bit ways up. And of course the culprit. But you can see all that white rock. That's where it's newly fallen off, because that's the actual color of the rock is this white stuff. It's an orthosite. There's a dark anorthosite and a white anorthosite, and we have most of the white stuff here. And an anorthosite is a polar rock found in mountains or the moon. So there you go. But the sky is nice and blue, and now the sun is setting over that mountain, and we'll start walking back. Anyway, I thought, okay, so I didn't get out to show you the village and the Vikings coming, but basically they're just bringing modern stuff into their house as soon as we closed at 6 o'clock. Because they can't do that during the opening hours. Nobody wants to see a modern person moving into a Viking house and then suddenly turning into a Viking. Vikings carrying coolers. It's not good. Torben says it's the same rock, but the white one once oxidizes and turns black. There you go. Thank you. Spoken like a true Norwegian. I'm just a foreigner. Max says, remember one of those people... Oh, wait, did I... No, I read that already. Right-handed for lessons. Did you say if you hit it with your Karl? No, car. If you hit it with your car. But I bet Karl wouldn't like it if we hit the rock either. Or hit Karl with the rock. That would be very bad. But one of these days we'll film the walk home. If you look, let's see. It's hard to see here, but right in there, that is right behind that branch actually. That's the waterfall that you can see from the village, the really big one, but it doesn't, from here it's kind of tucked in on the right behind a outcrop. But that kind of gives you an idea of how far away we are from the village. Oh, look at the sunset on the rocks, is nice. But anyway, then you kind of walk around this way and around and then along this road here. And it's a really nice walk, so one of these days when Karl and I have some time, we'll walk home and we'll record something for YouTube and put it out so you can join us for a walk home, and we'll talk to each other about some stupid crap that went on that day, and it'll be just wonderful. Or he can talk to us about Call of Cthulhu or something from the Viking. So you got Viking questions for him when I get back, by the way. Let's see, we're only 18 minutes in, so we should have some time to show the stitch and to... Oh, I can wave, by the way. There you go. I feel short. There. Now we'll have time to show the stitch, and then we'll get to bug Karl with questions. I picked out his third Viking glass. I don't think we've shown this one yet. Either that or I screwed up, and it's the same one we showed a couple of weeks ago. And then his beer of choice. I think he's got 2 more that we picked up from the airport. Sorry. Oh, the sky looks kind of pink on the camera. And then we'll see if we can knock Karl over with some really fun Viking questions. So Torben is sending us photos of his paint. He was going through a little dilemma. He ran out of primer, didn't know what to do, and he was starting to get mad at the Postal Service, which I think is kind of interesting because he is the Postal Service. So it's a small world. But no, Karl hasn't gotten any painting done since he said he was going to do it last year already. So we'll have to try to get some of that done. Look at the deep, it just digs into the ground. Oh, speaking of avalanches, there was one, but I think it was just a rock. I can't see it anyway, but I think it was over there. It just sounds like a little firecracker pop when they're just 1 or 2. Maybe I shouldn't be walking here, huh? No, we're okay. most of the big stuff is gone and it hasn't been raining. Most of the big stuff is down and it hasn't been raining a lot in the last couple weeks, so we're pretty good. Heavy rain, I would not recommend it. To be honest, says Albert, even when I wait for packages, I always think it's taking so long, and I work with this, you too, right? So I'm putting a book order in, Albert, so I have to put a lot of stuff ordered in, so maybe you'll see a lot of things headed to Gudvangen again soon. The pretty color on the trees with the moss. Doesn't take much to amuse me. But you can see how they're all kind of bent. That's from shock waves from past avalanches. And then they start trying to go upright again. So they kind of reach up. I really like this new camera, by the way, that we got in October or September. The pictures are so much better. Torben says, I'm the postman. I hate the slowness of the Norwegian Postal Service. I'm a postman. All right, who else wants to gripe about their day job? I'm griping about mine. There's not enough hours in the day and I wish I was further along on the stuff I need to do. But we have seasonal employees returning too, which is really nice. All of that is rock under there, by the way. But you can tell how long ago this fell because of the amount of moss on it. Max says, speaking of that, I kind of made my own tradition. Every 6 months, post-Christmas, I get an Amazon gift card to order from it. And afterwards, during the holidays or on my birthday, I get a gift card as usual. Oh, that's quite cool. I gotta say, they didn't have Amazon in service in Norway. So the closest we could get was Amazon UK. So I haven't actually gotten really into the habit of ordering off of Amazon because everything comes with toll. And God knows what it's like with tariffs now, but that's the other way around, I guess. But I guess we have Amazon service in Norway now, if I'm remembering correctly. I think it's just a hub. Albert says, I had a package stuck in Oslo and I found out why it was slow from my supervisor and I still think it's slow. Aw. No, some things will take time if they didn't fill out their pro forma invoices correctly, where for tax reasons the company that's sending things has to state what they're sending and the value and everything correctly. And if they haven't filled it out correctly, it gets delayed. Ooh, catching my breath a bit because I'm getting fat. I think I'm beyond getting fat, to be honest. I'm fluffy. Have you ever seen that guy? Garcia, what the heck is his name? Ignatius, I think it is. Anyway, really funny. So he talks about the sizes of people, and he's a size fluffy. And so he thinks things like rides at amusement parks should be more fluffy friendly. So he's one of my new favorites. That's one of the ties from the bridge, actually. The previous bridge. We passed one earlier at the gate. That bridge went, let's see, there you can see. There. Right next to that rock, you'll see there's some ties sticking out. That's where the original bridge went across before the new run came in with E16. Yeah, if you're wondering what road that is, that highway is E16. It's the main highway between Oslo and Bergen. Goes west to east across Norway. Gabriel Iglesias, thank you very much. You got it. Do you know that one? Obviously you do. See, I'll put my microphone back on. I was huffing puffing in it. There. Anyway, I don't know how I stumbled across him, but I was laughing my ass off. I need to see that guy live. He was in Oslo, but I need him to come to Bergen. You don't know him? Look him up on YouTube. He's got a bunch of little shorts, but he also has some of the full versions, but he's absolutely hilarious. But just look up, I think he's called Fluffy Guy as well. Is that the name of his YouTube? Fluffy man or fluffy guy or something like that. But he's a size fluffy. I thought that was cute. Let's see. You guys get to help me put the gate back on here so I can see what I'm doing. Not easy though, because the whole thing is falling down. Look at it. James says, I'm doing a Billum woven crochet and a little bit of hand sewing and a little bit of Billum knit. Ah, Albert recognizes him. Yeah, he's been doing that for years. Well, that sounds like an exciting project, Jims. I've been embroidering, and I'll show you a little bit of what I finished this week, because we have quite a bit of needle binding, or enough needle binding in the hats right now that the embroideries are selling too fast. There's the other part of the bridge. And you can see it's starting to cave in here a bit. But yeah, the original bridge, I believe, went this way. That's got to be some time ago, though. So it was kind of fun when we got to visit England, because they had daffodils blooming everywhere and everything just looked so pretty. And then we come back and there's still ice and snow. But it's starting to get a little green now, as you can see. The trees are starting to get little blooms. So we're almost on par with what England looked like a couple of weeks ago. And that's all the working crew stuff that are working on the avalanche protection. Maybe next week I walk over that way if we aren't able to stay in the village. And there you can see up again. Yeah, you can see how close that is though to the houses. There's one there. And you can see it just goes right there. But that house has been there for well over 100 years. Ah! Peruta found Gabriel Iglesias' fluffy jokes. Oh my God, and he does a Karin voice like you would not believe. I think my favorite one is the one where he takes his son late to school and has to deal with the principal. There's the other avalanches, and they go down that way behind the houses over there. So, this is a fluffy glow. No, but anyway, so how was your week? And yeah, now you tried the stitch. You liked it. Going around a core makes me liking that stitch a lot more than when I didn't. Oh, out of breath. So, let's go find Karl. I had an odd request. Somebody was in the shop today looking for a shoehorn, and I didn't think about it, but there's one above the door. Not a shoehorn, but a horseshoe. Sorry, I said that wrong. Apparently he knew somebody who collected old horseshoes. And I wouldn't even know where to tell him to find that kind of thing in Norway. Because I don't even think we have modern horseshoes. Okay, let's see. Find a Karl. You all set, Karl? You all set? Oops, sorry. He just got himself a beer. Okay, I'm going to give you the microphone. And we'll turn the camera on you now. Oops, wrong way. There. And you can tell us what you're drinking. We need some more light. What are you going to have for beer? This is your new glass.
Yep. I don't remember anything about the glass. It's the other little one.
Do I have to look it up?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, hang on a minute. Whoop. Okay, I just showed off my fluffy butt. I was talking about Gabriel Iglesias and the fluffy guy with the fluffy jokes.
Mm-hmm.
I have to turn on a microphone. Ta-da! And then there were two of us, I believe. Yep.
This is Book Girl.
Yeah. Which is a Bach beer.
It's from the same brewery as the one last time, and that was a resounding success.
Yeah, you really liked that one. That was the, what was it? Noodle? No, Jedi. The Jedi one. Jay wrote in the Yoda. The Jedi beer.
Yeah.
Yeti Norog Briggeria, I think it is.
Draug er et fyldig og maltrikt bukkøl med undergjæret sterkøl som gjerne nytes på stormfulle vinterkvelder. Draug er gjenferd av en fisker som varsler om ulykker på sjøen. Ser du draugen segle i sin halve båt, gjør du klokt i å finne en lun havn. Doesn't matter, when you see him it's too late.
Yeah, so did you translate that for them? Sorry.
Well, basically it says, Draug is a rich, malty beer.
Yeah, he still has a cough.
It's under-fermented, and it is good for stormy winter nights. The Draugen,
Where's the Schnapp
not
glass?
Draugar, but Draugen, is the remnant of fisherman that has drowned at sea. If you see Draugen sail in his half boat, you will do well to seek a safe harbor. But it's too late. If you see him, you're already dead.
Dun dun dun.
And
That
he looks
sounds
like this.
final.
The guy in the half boat.
Yeah. Do we need to turn it around, or is it okay in mirror? It's mirrored when you hold it up like that.
I
but-
don't think it matters if you're sailing to the starboard or
You never know.
port direction. I don't think one of them brings good luck.
Okay, let's see if we can find that glass. I thought the glass was kind of cool, though. It has these like little gills, it looks like. They're sticking out. I don't know if this is the one we showed or not, but the other one was with the threads. But there was two short ones, and I can't remember, but I think we didn't, because there's two of these in the cupboard, and I don't usually put these in the dishwasher.
For some reason, I associate Bukkøl with very old drugs.
Well, if you see any, let me know.
But I'm interested to see what this tastes like. I think we've had one Bukkøl before, but I really can't remember it. So
Bach beer, I think you would like it. That's what I used to drink when I could. Bach beer and Guinness stouts.
alcoholics.
It's a ribbonerad skål. Ribbonerad is what a ribboned, and skål is the type of cup. It's in Swedish, by the way. It is found in the 200s, Slädarna in Västergotland, Sweden. That's about 3.5 centiliters. But they're all a little bit different because they're handmade. So the other, if we have two, so one might be slightly bigger than the other.
It's foaming enthusiastically.
That's probably an operator error. It's a clean glass, so I don't know. I don't know what you probably just don't know how to pour.
Probably. Because I never drank beer before.
It smells interesting. Am I getting a hint of fruit?
No. It smells...
Draug. Let's see. I like the way this guy looks.
It smells malty.
It does. And this is what, ripe young 12% like the other?
No, it's not that bad.
Not that bad.
7.
6.8%, yeah. Oh, it does smell a little bit like Guinness. It's a very dark beer, though. Anyway, you can't see through it. What do you think?
It's good. It's nothing like the other one, but it's still a good beer.
Slädarna Västergotland, from circa 200s something. There's the name of the Swedish place. Anyway, my parents' dog, says Max Reese, is at my brother's place. Sometimes I can hear her going crazy by barking like a mad dog over nothing. Oh, that's always a fun pet. We have cats that go nuts whenever we go on YouTube. Otherwise, they're pretty good, but no, they're just kind of, look at them. The other one's over there sniffing something, and then this one's watching closely.
And this one very rarely does this when there is no YouTube.
No. Cute. Let's see. Now I got the chat on my screen so I can see a little bit better. Yeah, Albert thought the glass looked French, but this time you lose. Where's the Schnabel glass? It says Isiki Medieval. I like that name.
I have.
Go get it and show it off, but you're not drinking from it today
I
because you
don't
already got one.
know where.
It's in the cupboard or behind the sink to be washed. It has to be hand washed, so we don't. So it's usually somewhere near the sink anyway. Depends on if we were good at washing it or not. We will find out. I did order some new ones for the store that aren't, because these big ones are expensive. They're like 1,800 kroner. And there's a bunch of different sizes of it. Let's see, push the camera up a bit. But they found some that were literally about this big in comparison, and it has like 2 rows of snobbles on there. Snobbles would be clawbeaker, by the way. They look like little talons, and the talons are empty, so you can fill them up. Actually, they're voids in the glass instead of just where these you can't fill these up, obviously. But on the other ones, there you go. Yeah, so Karl's got one, and then you have like this fun
I
little
would
drinking
be
game.
very
You think?
surprised if it is clean because it was behind your popcorn machine.
No, if it's next to the sink, it's not cleaned. So here we go. Behold the dirty claw beaker with the blue. You can put that a little closer. With the blue talons on it. And most of the ones we have do not have colored talons, but this one does.
Yeah.
That's one I think we got from Denmark. That one, a guy in Denmark that makes those. But do you want to explain? I don't know if you can see in there, but the claws fill up with fluid as well when you fill these up. So then do you want to explain the fun of it? Because I don't know if you have used it in a while.
They just make a gluk sound every time you pour from it.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like it burps every time. But also, it's hard to empty them when you're drinking.
Yeah.
So every time you drink one, these ones fill up. Then you turn it to try to empty those, and then these ones fill up. So you were thinking that maybe the Vikings like to make drinking games out of glasses?
I think the Vikings like to make drinking games out of drinking.
I think so too. A lot of them they have are vase-shaped, like a V-shaped funnel glass. And then the holders that we have them in, those little spiral holders, those are actually medieval.
No, they're
aren't they? Or they're more they're more modern anyway.
No, they're straight up modern.
Yeah, okay.
Because they had glasses that you could put on the table
Yeah.
in the medieval times.
So nowadays we want to be able to put our glasses down, and we don't want to drink everything in one go, so we need to put it down. But the Vikings obviously didn't have this spiral contraption because, God forbid, they slowly drink their alcohol.
Yeah, you usually drink from a horn. That is impossible to put down.
No, that's true.
So then you, on purpose, when you want to show off your status, you don't want to look like a wuss who has to put his alcohol down. So you get somebody to make you a glass that is shaped like a funnel.
Yeah. By the way, they're claw beakers. The one that I ordered is from the 500s. I only got a couple of them, though, because they're real expensive.
And mostly from that time period.
Yeah, there's 500s, Denmark, Gotland, England, Norway. Oh, they all show 500s, even some in white and blue and rose. Then there's one from the British Museum called Snabbelbegere Chatteris. There's Chatteris. Snabbelbegere is just their way of saying clawbeaker, the Swedish way. Anglo-Saxon from a King's Grave in Chatteris, England, 500. Then there's one from the 600s, also from England. Vendel Uppland, England, Sweden. Velsgärde, Uppland, Lofoten. One from Kent, Faversham in Kent. And then, oh no, that's not the last one. The last two I said were not actually claw beakers. Oh yeah, and then we have those tippy glasses that we like, the ones that they just kind of roll around. They can't stand because they're.
But we use them pretty often on YouTube, so people will see them.
Yeah, they've seen those quite a bit. Yeah, and then the ones that I was talking about.
That we can use them for your alcohol if you decide to get drunk one of these days.
Yay! Oh, I can have a drinky drink. Go get me a green one.
Of course, I am the one who have to go when you have to drink, and I am the one who has to go when I have to drink.
If you don't want me to drink, I can stay sober.
Of course, I want you drunk, woman.
Like, we still got the candy vodka. What is it called? You got a microphone on with you, by the way, if you're going outside.
It's called mojito something.
Mojito shot or mojito candy shot or something like that.
Because we bought the alcohol and the mojito thing separately.
Yeah, it was like this big, long, taffy, hard candy snake in a jar, in a bottle anyway, and you're supposed to top it off with vodka and let it sit. No sound. Uh-oh. Should be. Are we no sound still? I haven't touched the phone, so let's see. Oh, one can hear me anyway, so... Okay, because according to these, we should still work. Can you hear everything? Can you hear Karl playing with the glass in the other room? Because he took his microphone with him. Maybe your cat stepped on the mute button. My computer is in mute mode, so I can hear it. Tap the mic! This is me. Karl, tap the microphone.
I'm slapping it enthusiastically, woman.
He said, okay, well, you heard him. If you heard him anyway, he's slapping it enthusiastically in the other room. The microphone. It sounds! Okay, everybody's got sound except for one. Okay, well, anyway, that's good. So basically, this was a big tube of candy that was into a bottle, and you're supposed to pour vodka over it and let it sit for about 3 days or so. I think it took 5 days before that thing finally dissolved. But oh my God, it's so good. So, but only if you're allowed to have alcohol. If you're too young for alcohol, it tasted horrible. So, anyway, but I'm allergic to beer and wine. But this is spirits is something I can't actually drink. So this was kind of a fun one. I just have to have a real small glass. Torben says, "You slap it, Karl. You slap it hard." And yes, your microphone is working. No reaction to it? Did you bring me a little glass? I need a little glass. I'm not drinking this straight from the bottle. This stuff is like, that's a lot of alcohol in that thing. But yeah, look at the color of it. But it was this stuff called, from tomtepoesa.no. We found it in, it's backwards for you, sorry. So it looks like TOHS. But at a little town called Bierschelo has a Landshandel, which is like a little country store, as they call it. And one of the things they had were different kinds of these. So when this is done, we're going to experiment or make our own. I think how many different kinds of candy we can put in this jar with some vodka and see if I will drink it on YouTube. Torben is very evil. Electric fly swap. I think he's the electric fly swatter. There we
Couldn't
go.
find the tumbling thingies. So
No, but this is the right size for me. I get to use the good china, or the good glasses. So
beautiful glasses.
the beautiful stemware that I got when I was married and I am now divorced, and these are mine. The little crystal glasses.
Ah, Warlut.
Yeah, they're cheaper than the china, though, I gotta tell you, by far. Let's see, I'll put this thing back on me again. But yeah, there we go. Okay, so I can have something too. And then I'll show you how to needle bind after a little. Okay. So did you guys have any good questions for Karl, by the way? I've been making you think about it for a while. Albert says, paddle or flog? It's a question. What do you prefer?
It depends. Am I receiving or giving here?
Giving. Not to me! There's no way for me to answer this. Wait, no. Receiving.
The answer is the same in either case. It's paddle because it's more reusable.
But are the holes in the paddle so that it has less resistance?
Yes, but
It's strong, but it's so good. Okay, let's see what else I got to catch it. I know, says Torben, I aim not to please. And Albert says, I mean, cattle prod is worse. Oh God, this reminds me of episodes of South Park.
probably not.
PJ says, I'm too young for alcohol. No matter how old I get, apart from the mead and the ginger wine, I don't like the taste. Nah. A little bit in... what were you saying before I rudely interrupted you? Probably not because...
No, the cattle prod is probably not worse because the shock makes it so that you really can't feel it.
Okay, Prudy's got a Viking question for you, by the way. And Torben says, you don't slap with a cattle prod, you insert... ... The alien invasion has begun.
Was there a Viking question somewhere?
Yeah! Then Torben's even stopping himself now. Let's see. Oh, yeah. He's like medieval, if I'm saying that right. This is PJ, have you tried liquor or mead? I got a lot of people who asked me about that too, if I could handle mead, but for some reason I cannot handle mead. But I do know that if it's a wine that has been home brewed, like Christoph brought some homemade cherry wine, and the cat is mounting Karl again. And somebody brought, was it Jonas makes apple wine, the home brews, and then Audra made a wine with dandelion. Those ones I could drink, so I think it's sulfites. I think my problem is sulfites. It's not tannins. So maybe if you have something similar, it might be that kind of a thing. But still, even though when I get wine from one of them that's homebrew, I will only have this much because I don't want to tempt the fates too much. The back, the aftermath is not pretty. Yes, Viking question. Do you know of any folk remedies or cures for the flu? Because Prude is dying here. Viking age, of course. We know how they might be able to. Well, we know a little bit, but I'm thinking of the onion trick, but that's not really a cold and flu
that has
thing.
nothing to do with the flu, unless she has the flu because somebody stabbed her in the belly.
No, it's probably your fault. You started all this when you came back from England sick. Let's see. Okay, I gotta show you what I made. Put it down here. Sorry. Bang. And tilt the camera down at my mess. There we go. Okay, so things I did today that weren't this week that weren't needle binding. I finished this guy. It looks a lot like one I did at the beginning of the year. That's because the one that I did at the beginning of the year sold within 2 hours of going in the shop, so I made another one, and I finally finished it. This has silk around the edges. I don't know if you can see that. The brown is the silk. Yeah, it's kind of shining, and then the rest is wool, but it needs to be pressed because I get these little bumps when I do it too tightly. That sounds bad. No, I get little bumps in the work if I embroider chain stitches too tightly. Oops. Tried to put there we go, the gimbal on the floor with my stomach. So anyway, I made that. And then I made one with this little boat sold. I've made a couple of these with plant dyed in blue, but this time I wanted to do, because I had a natural looking background, so I thought I'll try some more of the brown silk. So if you can see it shining there. The problem is the brown silk you can see it's kind of raised in the stitches there. There's a little bit of the glue left in here. I can feel it. It's this fabric that goes over it that dissolves in water, so you can draw and then just go around your drawing, and then when you dissolve the whole thing, it comes away. But I didn't get it all out, so it feels a little bit like glue on this one, but I think I'm going to leave that in there because it's also a stiffener for this silk. Did they use a cattle prod, Peruta? What the hell? Peruta says, feels like someone stabbed me in the throat, and then Torben wants to know if they used a cattle prod. Okay, so that was what I did a couple other things. Needle binding, wrist warmers with some very fuzzy yarn. It looks like this. This is mohair, I believe. You can see how fuzzy it is. So yes, you can needle bind with mohair, but don't make a mistake because trying to pick it out again, this is going to be knotted. I did not put thumbs on this one though, so it's a bit more open. I should probably reinforce that part though. That's why I like to put thumbs on them usually, or a couple rows. Ta-da. Let's see. And I did. If you like this stitch that we're doing without a core, that's what this is made of. That's basically a wadded up ball of leftover fabric scraps. And then you go a couple of times around with some string that you don't like, and then you start doing single looping around each area. So that's what that is, except for the fact that I didn't have enough blue or green. I used some embroidery wool from those kits, what is it called, anchor yarn. This stuff that you find in thrift stores everywhere. So I used this stuff, but I didn't have enough in one of these to do the whole ball of each color. So there's two little yellow nipples in the thing. It looked, or eyeballs, what do you want to call it? One is bigger than the other. Anyway, I have no idea what to do with these, but it's a nice way to use up these little pieces of scrap fabric and maybe yarn you don't like, because that could be on the inside too. That makes a nice little ball, but I'm still not very good at the tensioning thing. I've even tried starting with the same amount of stitches, but yeah, doesn't matter. It's just a fun little thing. Thank you. So we'll put those away in a noisy plastic bag because that's the only way we can get away from cat hair in this house. And then I'll show you Okay, stitch of the month. We used rainbow as the color, so you can, any rainbow or multicolored yarn will do. I deliberately used purple as a core. You don't have to use two different color core. Your core and your main color doesn't have to be two different colors, but it has a really cool effect if you do. You can see it almost looks like an iridescent purple coming through, but the purple is the core. There is no purple in my outer yarn. And let's see if I can find my needle. Oh, yes, it's still threaded. I'm a good kid. Oh, I had started another embroidery too, by the way. This is that fabric I was telling you about. It's dissolvable, I don't know what you call it. Fleeceline, Viseline, it's called in Norwegian anyway, but it's dissolvable fabric, and you can just draw your pattern on there. And then when you soak it, this will dissolve and go away. But you might want to, for one, make sure that you're not drawing with something that will leak, like a marker. And you can even cut it a little closer to the edge before you soak it so you don't have all this excess. But this is the Triskelion, by the way, this symbol, Karl, before we go into the stitch. Do you know a meaning by this? Because this is actually much older than the Viking Age, but it's used throughout the Viking Age as well.
Meaning?
Triskelion, yeah. The meaning behind this thing.
No, but you don't know the meaning behind bloody anything.
No, we don't. But do you have, I can tell you there's a couple of theories. Some say Father, Son, Holy Spirit. That one I'm a little bit against because of the fact that this is older than...
Can't be, no.
Yeah, exactly. This is older than 0. So I don't think it would have that meaning. Maybe a modern day meaning to it. I do like the idea of past, present, future. But there's some others. There was a bunch of different meanings anyway. But it's a Triskelion if you want to look it up and see and go with whatever meaning you like. But we really don't. Yeah, like you said, I don't think we know. It's just whatever the archaeologists thought it was. But they're found in rock carvings. And
the archaeologists are usually good at not making up shit.
Yeah, but...
internet users,
yeah.
Not so good.
Ah, okay. So anyway, there was a couple of different ones, but you can see. So this one thing I found out, though, you got to be careful with the core when you're going around it, because if your core is too tight, your work can do this. So I made this hat. I haven't done anything on this since we last looked at it, though, but you can see it's kind of on the big side intentionally. And a lot of people thought it has a future as a beret, but I'm hoping it'll work as a Viking hat. So we shall see. But anyway, so you're just doing simple looping. So you can see between these two posts, I did this stitch. So if you go, your next stitch will be between these two posts, that way. But instead of just doing this, which is your simple looping, you're going around the core, which is your purple thread in this case, and then up. And then this is all tensioned by I. So you just after tension it. And the trick is to keep your tension even. So I kind of catch it on my thumb first, and then, let's see. We have a very chatty cat over there who's not happy with the contents in his litter box and thinks that it should be cleaned out so his master can have a fresh toilet. Or his majesty, I mean, not his master. Okay, anyway, so there you go. That's the one we've been in because of those two posts, so we're going to go between these two posts now. So you go, you can see there's the purple one from before. You're just going under the blue loop and then around the core. And then, of course, in front of your blue yarn. And pull straight up. And then you're after tensioning. So I don't know if you've tried this one yet, but if you did not like simple looping because you thought it was too stretchy or whatever, this core helps a lot. Because I got to say, simple looping is one of my least favorite stitches. But when Sally showed me doing the stitch around a core, it was suddenly 10 times more bearable. I actually like this stitch now, but I really have to work with my gauge. Let's see there. And then you'll see I also have a problem with my yarn is going to start to twist up. So every once in a while I have to hang the work and let the needle spin. That's because I'm not twisting my needle, or I am twisting my needle or something. But yeah, so that's the stitch we're doing for April. And nope, May shall not be revealed until it's May. But I thought this was one of those stitches, one of the stitches that I picked up from Sally Pointer. It's a Neolithic age stitch. So one of the older ones, based on the find from Tybrind Vig. in Denmark. So I thought, because of the way this looks around a core, that it makes it so much more stable. But then remember, there is no stretch, by the way. It can only stretch as much as your core stretches, so which obviously is not stretching. So take that into consideration if you're making a hat. Your hat will not be able to have any stretch to it. So make it a little too big on purpose, and it'll just have to be a loose-fitting hat. Karl, there are some questions for you, so I'm going to put this back over on you. And I will have some more of my mojito shot. We have to experiment with candy and vodka now. Mm-hmm. Just so that I can join you. Cheers. Yeah, Nolvia says that stitch reminds me of basket weaving technique. Mine too. And she made this really nice bag out of it with jute, which is like twine. And it looks just like a basket almost. So I liked that one. Okay. Question for Karl, says Albert. How far can many of the old Norwegian wife tricks be dated back to? Maybe old wives' tales?
It depends. For something like that to be dated, it have to be documented by somebody. So if it is a part of a story, so if it is something that happens in a saga, for instance, then you can pin it to the 1200s.
Yeah.
And otherwise, if it is something, most of what we know about folk tales and superstitions in Norway is things that were collected when we had Nasjonalromantikken, basically when people started to romanticize the things that were particular to Norwegians. So when you have Asbjørnsen and Moe collecting fairy tales, and you have other people collecting basically old wives' styles. But the only thing you know is that they existed at that time. Because an old wife tale might be something that has been passed on for 80 generations, and it might be that your grandmother was nuts. You just don't know.
What is your favorite old wives' tale? Can you think of any off the bat? Or maybe it's something stupid I said to you? No.
I think my personal favorite is Værtegn. Because it is in itself so incredibly idiotic.
Okay.
Because it goes something like this, that if the wind is from the east on the first day of Easter, you will get a cold season. And then you have something like that for almost every day in the year.
Yeah.
And if somebody records all of this, it is not internally consistent.
Those of you with temperature blankets, temperature sweaters.
So for instance, if sign number 1 says that if the weather is nice on this day, you get a cold winter. And then you have other ones that come in this cold winter and say the weather is nice this year, at this time, you will get, it will be warm this month. And it's like, no, but it's supposed to be cold. The whole bloody winter is supposed to be cold. So this day has to be cold. And that means that the sign that this day, the logic breaks itself. You don't really have to do anything with it. It's just silly.
Osberson and Mo says, Albert, I want the books that are uncensored, and I've heard that there was a lot of crude stories that are not even known. They must make something, because I know the Brothers Grimm, they have uncensored versions of that. And The Princess and the Frog, let's just say it wasn't as pretty as it was on Disney.
There is a book called Erotiske folkeeventyr.
Okay. And what would that be translated to roughly in English?
Erotic fairy tales.
Erotic fairy tales.
Not
for kids.
I don't know if this is basically the reject from Asbjørnsen and Moe's collection, or if it is another crazy person who just collected the erotic ones. I don't know. I've read some of them, and they are...
Oh, okay.
Odd.
Yeah? Sorry. Did I interrupt you?
Probably, yes. You do that a lot.
Yeah. Were you done? Are you done yet? Are you done? Are you done?
Yeah, no, I don't need to tell you any erotic folktales.
Now I want to know an erotic folktale. Okay, but remember, not for kids, Karl.
I don't have any erotic folktales for kids, woman.
All right, you got some homework that not for kids. You no, I meant not for kids. So you'd have to kind of probably tone it down a bit, which we never do anyway. But actually, Roger had a good question. Is there symbolism to Thor's hammer? Why a hammer and not a sword? Is Thor's hammer made of stone? Hollywood morphed Thor's hammer into a steel battle axe. So, yes, anyway. Is hammer something to do with smithing, maybe? This is PJ. Okay, but anyway, well, let's start with the first one, actually. Is there symbolism to Thor's hammer?
Probably yes, because they had so many pendants of it. But what these pendants represent, you can't know without if you can't ask a Viking directly.
No.
And also they might not necessarily even have one meaning for all of the Viking Age. One thing you will notice with these Thor's hammer pendants is that the ones from the early Viking Age are very anchor-like. The lower part of the hammer are much bigger and the shaft is shorter than it becomes later. Later in the Viking Age, it's more like the Christian cross.
Yeah, there's the wolf cross. You had to look that one up. I can see if I can find it.
But,
The wolf cross is a much more later one, but it's
yeah,
quite
but
cool.
the wolf cross is probably made ambiguous on purpose.
Let's see, kinds of. Yeah, I think so too. I have a thought on that one.
But the point is, you can associate it with the values that Thor is associated with. Thor is like the protector of humanity. He is very strong. So it might be strength or protection. That's kind of very obvious conclusions to draw. But they might still be entirely bloody wrong.
Yeah. This is the one a bit like the one that Torben has, I believe. This one's probably the most popular one because the people like the look of it. But there's these anchor-shaped ones. Let's see. I was going to see if I just Googled types of Thor's hammers that are found. Yeah, and then sometimes you get multiple on rings.
Yeah, that's typical for Swedish people.
Yeah, they want to be extra protected. So when people are asking in the store,
when
one
you
of
are
the
a
things
little bit of a wuss and you have to go out into the big world,
Norway
extra
and Sweden
protection
don't get
is
along.
good.
This is the one I think that was based on a find where there was carving in there. This is Marvel Comics. There you go, Instagram. But I got to find the one that said Wolf's Cross. Oops, Wolf's Cross. So one of the things we say in the store when people ask is it's a symbol of protection. How far off are we on that one? There you get the Wolf's Cross.
Well, the correct answer is I don't know. If you want to say it's a symbol of protection, then show me a source for that.
Yeah. No, I thought that was, I don't know. Anyway, but that's one of the things we say. Another one is that we kind of compare it to the use of a crucifix or a cross that people wear around their neck to show that they're Christian.
Yeah, but are they symbols of protection?
I don't know. Well, yeah. Actually, yeah. At least the Catholics thought so. Anyway, we would wear that or a scapular. So basically, if you had it on you when you died, you would be protected. That's at least what the Roman Catholics thought when I was going back to school, or when I was in parochial school. So this one is the Wolf's Cross. And this one, I like the theory that this has something to do with when Viking age was starting to end and Christianity started to take over. Am I saying that correctly, or do you want to cringe and yell at me? Because it looked a bit like a cross that was upside down, or is it a hammer? You could be kind of like, no, look, I'm pagan. No, I'm Christian, don't kill me.
I don't think it has to do with one religion taking over the other one. I think it has to do with somebody who just can't be bothered to pick a side.
Yeah.
Say, for instance, a traveling trader who has to trade with both Christians and pagans. Then it makes sense to have a symbol that is so ambiguous that you can just pat people on the shoulder and go, hey, calm down, I'm one of you guys.
Yeah, maybe.
Every time you get into religious conflicts you don't want any part of.
But that was my favorite Thor's hammer. We lost Karl's audio. Did you die? One of them might not have got charged all the way, so let's try it again. Nope, it didn't get charged all the way, but that's because I noticed 10 minutes before 6. Okay, we share microphones. Say again.
Say again.
What you were saying about the cross thing. Is it a cross? That theory. Is it a cross or is it a
I think it is
hammer?
made ambiguous on purpose by somebody who doesn't want to be dragged into other people's religious bullshit.
Yeah.
So if you say, for instance, are buying swords with the Franks that are Christians and selling them to pagans that are not, then having a symbol around your neck that you can point to and going, hey, look, I'm one of you guys,
Yeah.
no matter where you are, works out fine.
No, that was always one of my favorite because it was so different. Let's see. Okay, and then why a hammer and not a sword? Is Thor's hammer made of stone? Hollywood morphed Thor's hammer into a steel battle axe. I'm gonna have you hold this so I can needle bind.
Uh, well, according to, oof. Well, I don't remember the name of the poem, but what basically happens is that Thor has a wife called Siv, and Loki somehow manages to sneak into their bedroom and shave her head while they are sleeping. Thor is, to put it mildly, a little bit pissed off about this. So he goes and finds Loki and tells him that if he doesn't fix this, like immediately, he's going to break every bone in his body. So Loki comes up with this elaborate scheme where he has two sets of dwarves competing against each other about making nicest possible gifts for the gods. This is a lot more complicated. I know Greg has told this story here before, and obviously he probably remembers the story as written. But of the things they get from this Loki playing dwarves up against each other thingamajig is Siv's hair. Freya's necklace, Dreipnir, a gold necklace that basically every night it produces 9 copies of itself. That's a problem if she has had that lying around somewhere for the last 1,000 years. It produces Skibladnir, Frey's ship that you can fold into a little. You can fold it so much that you can put it in your little bag, and it can travel on land and on water. Odin's spear that always hits and comes back to his hand. Frey's magical, possibly mechanical boar, and a lot of other stuff. But the most important thing, the real jewel in the crown, is Thor's hammer. And one of Loki's little problems is that he has pissed off one of the groups of dwarves so much that he really doesn't want them to win. That's the group of dwarves that makes Thor's hammer. And when he sees what they're doing, he wants to stop them from finishing it, because they will win, and then they want his head. So he shapeshifts into a fly and keeps biting the dwarf who is operating the bellows, which means that the hammer must have been made of metal because you're making it in a forge. And the dwarves are pretty stoic, so they just ignore the fly who keeps biting them. But when he gets really desperate, he tries to bite the dwarf on the eye, and then he loses focus for a little moment, which to chase the fly away, which causes the handle of Thor's hammer to be very short.
Oh, so that's why it looks like a.
That's why it has a short handle.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
I don't think Thor does any blacksmithing at all in the stories about him.
Yeah, that was the next question. Does that have something to do with smithing, maybe?
Thor is a traveler and a warrior. I don't know him to do anything else. If we had the Haralder here, he could probably actually recite this poem. But there is one of the poems where Odin is talking about all the places in Osgard.
Okay.
And I'm paraphrasing enormously here. But he says something to the effect of, and if you think Valhalla is big, you should see the house of my son Thor. Because he has, I'm pulling numbers out of my butt, but there are something like this. 120 doors that each are so big that 120 men can walk shoulder to shoulder through the doors. And then you're talking about a hall that makes Georg's hall look pretty pathetic.
Our chieftain, yeah.
Because Georg has 2 doors, and 2 men can walk shoulder to shoulder through his doors.
Oh, well, obviously he has to. Actually, has 3 doors. One of them where there's only one person.
Yes, but one of them is, first of all, it's locked. Secondly, there is a lot of storage in front of it. If you manage to climb over all of that somehow, you have to climb over Marie's rune reading bench and get 100,000 candles.
Please tell me that's not
So,
the fire exit.
I would say that you have 2 doors.
No, you-
It's one
no way.
room. This is the third door you don't need.
No, it's true. The servants' entrance.
It's the candle delivery entrance.
Yep. Anyway, you were saying that Georg would be jealous of Thor's Hall?
Everybody would be jealous of Thor's Hall. Even Odin seems to be jealous of Thor's Hall.
Wow.
So he has a pretty good hall.
Okay, there was another question here for you. Anne says the Triskelion could stand also for earth, fire, and water. The elements. Actually, that one I've heard before, too. I like that theory as well. More cats on the table. Get down.
Isn't there 4 elements originally?
Well, earth, wind, fire, and air. Yeah.
No, wind and air is the same thing.
I was thinking that too. And then what is the one I'm thinking of?
Earth,
wind,
fire, air, and water.
Water, sorry.
4 elements.
Yeah. Okay. I was trying to save myself on that, but there's no way to save myself. Another one per thought is maybe the possibility that it was the 3 fates of the Norns. Do you know this story?
Well, there are 3 Norns. But there are many things there are 3 of.
Yeah.
So, and also, I'm not super familiar with this symbol. But I suspect, because it's such a simple design, I would expect it to be multicultural and predate the proto-Germanic gods that the Viking gods come from.
There's quite a bit of symbolism that's in 3s. One is like three legs put together with a foot on it, or 3 arms. And then there's...
That's medieval, but
it's more modern, yeah. And then
no, it's medieval.
Yeah, I meant more modern than Viking.
Yes.
And then there's the Valknut, which is also 3... it's 1 triangle altogether, but it looks like 3 triangles, but it's done with 1 line. I can look it up. I have no idea what that's called in English.
I believe the name is universal. I think it's a Valknut in English too.
Yeah, and then let's see. Anyway, we'll just go to images. Your beard is looking... What is that? Your beard is looking shiny today, Karl. Show off that because you deserve it. You're not working that beard. There you go. Work it, Karl. Own it. It's all the beer that he keeps killing.
Do you want the microphone if you're going to talk, woman?
No, just scream. This is the Valknut, by the way. Okay. And then do you know what that one might be the symbol of? But it's also kind of 3s.
We know that this one, at least, we know had a strong symbolic meaning. We don't know exactly what it is.
No.
Could be Odin. Could
Maybe
be
it's
death.
Maybelline.
Could be whatever.
Yeah.
But it is famously on one runestone where it seems to be a human sacrifice. Somebody is bent over a table, and somebody seems to be stabbing him in the back, and that symbol is right above that thing. But you can't really draw any strong conclusions based on so little evidence. For all I know, there might be more, but I don't know about it, so I can't really talk to it.
The Triskel can be found on Celtic monuments. Yeah, that's another... It's also like the labyrinths are all around too.
Yeah, and Celtic history, I don't know exactly when it starts. They have a pretty big empire.
After the Picts, or...
Depends on where you are. The Picts were never in most of the areas that the Celts were in.
Yeah.
But Celtic history goes at least back to... let's see, when did Brennus sack Rome? That
Like I
would
know.
be in the 500s or 400s BC.
Yeah.
Um, the Celts still exist in the form of the Welsh and Irish, so to some degree the Scots.
Yeah.
Um, so Gaelic and Breton are Celtic languages, but their druids are well and truly dead. And I, much like the Vikings, really didn't like the idea of writing shit down. So we don't really know what I meant with anything. But it's unlikely that, because Celts and Vikings are completely different groups. It's even not even the same language group, not by a long shot. So it's very unlikely that they would have a common belief
That's a good
about what
question.
an object or representation meant or symbolized.
Novia brings up a really good point. Actually, I'm kind of, or a good question. Are Celtics and Vikings related? I know when we look at the art, they kind of cross over a little bit.
Not at all.
No?
The Celts, as the Britons and the Gauls before the Roman invasion, are of a completely different language group than the Vikings, who are Germanic. The Germanic people come in from the east and kind of push these people away as the Roman Empire falls. So the Franks that takes France and gives name to France. Otherwise, you would still be calling France Gaul, which was the Romans' name for it. The Angles and the Saxons, who become the Anglo-Saxons and are now basically the English, and you have the goal to call the uh, and have the goal to call the Welsh, which means foreigners, if I remember correctly, when they are the original inhabitants of that area. Um, then you have all the groups that ended up in Scandinavia, the Ryger, Horder, Goths. Um, all of these are people originally come from the east. And either we don't know. It's probably a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. Either they ethnically cleanse an area completely and take it over, or they just exchange the leadership.
Garcia, back to the Triskelion, that it could also stand for life, and death. That
Yes,
is a kind
no,
of, I like that one too in a
but
way.
anything there is three of, it could mean.
Yeah.
But it's also, that's the problem also, because it might mean something for a Celtic guy in the year 500 BC. It might mean something else for a Celtic guy in the year
Yeah.
100 BC. It might mean something else entirely for a Viking in the year 793 AD, and so on. It's some symbols are so easy to make that everybody
Yeah.
ends up with it. Like notice how the swastika, for instance, has a
Sun symbol.
completely different meaning in Hinduism and Shintoism than it does in bad German philosophy.
Modern history. Yeah.
Um, it is also used by the Old Norse. God knows what they meant the symbol meant.
It's often referred to as a sun
But
symbol.
we don't know. And this is, it's completely honest answer to say we don't know when you don't know. It's easy to make up something, but you probably shouldn't.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I like past, present, and future for the Triskelion is because your past, in order, the past, present, to the future, they're all kind of connected into where you are today, and I like that in the symbol that they're all connecting into the middle anyway. So I like the ones like also birth, life, and death is a good one too. I think because
Yeah,
they're.
no,
But that's just my own opinion of it. You don't
yeah.
really nobody knows.
No,
So there you
this
can
is
see
the
that.
thing. I can't say that you're wrong, but
Yeah.
also it's pure speculation.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's why it's one of my favorite. But I have to write back when I write on the back of them, the embroidery, so people know what they bought. I would write there that this is one theory is this, But it's a
For all
theory. Yeah.
I know, it might be Trump, Kamala Harris, and Bozo the Clown.
Politically neutral, my friend. Okay, no,
That
anyway.
was about as politically neutral as it could be.
Okay. And then I was going to say, see what else there was. Did you answer the one about the flu remedies? Yeah, you did. Or did I cut you off?
Well, keep falling back to my universal answer.
Yeah.
We just don't know.
No.
If I can go off on speculation line,
Speaking of the flu.
the Vikings are very concerned with not looking weak. So I think that if they can walk upright, they would consider it business as usual and I don't have the flu.
Mm.
There is, I need to find out which saga it's from because it's such a cool thing to say. But one guy gets wounded in the foot and then he just walks normally. And then somebody comments, you took a pretty bad hit to the foot here, my guy. Why aren't you limping? And he says, en halta ikke når så lenge føttene er jevnlange. Which directly translates to, you shouldn't be limping as long as your feet have the equal length. And this, I think, is kind of their, what you'd call it, cultural personality. I can absolutely guarantee you that if a Viking can walk and talk, he wouldn't be taking a sick leave. He wouldn't be going to his chieftain and saying, I'm sorry, but I can't come with you to Ireland today because I'm feeling a little bit under the weather. And it's like, what? Do you think the bloody monasteries are going to ride themselves? You are going to be on my boat.
So again, one of my favorite TV shows about the Viking Age is the Norwegian one, Norseman. And if you ever gotten to see that one, anyway, it kind of takes modern day beliefs and how they would work in the Viking Age. Like they all need to have a vote, or they have a meeting to discuss when the next meeting is going to be held. Or another one, the guy's rowing off to go and raid England, and he said, "But you promised I'd get back to pick up." No, I promised my wife I would be back in time to pick up the kid from the kindergarten, and all these modern day things. And of course, you got the guy that was from Rome who thought everything should be very democratic, and I think we should take a vote. And if you haven't seen that one, it's absolutely wonderful, and it is the most authentic Norwegian dialect there is, because they filmed it actually in tandem. They did one scene first in Norwegian, then in English, then they did the next scene.
I can vividly imagine the historical actual Vikings sitting down to have a meeting to decide when they should have the next meeting.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing that Norwegians just do. It's like
it's a joke, actually.
Ingrained in their blood.
It's a very common. Okay, now this is we're going to have a meeting today to discuss the agenda of next week's meeting.
I think, and I'm not sure about this, but it's kind of the mental image I have in my head, that the Vikings kind of have the same view as the Romans when it comes to equality. It's basically, no, you're not equals. It's self-evidently true that a slave and a free man is not equal. Likewise, a poor farmer and a chieftain are not equal. But to some extent, for some laws at least, they're equal under the law. Theoretically, the rules that apply to the free farmer also apply to the chieftain. The thing is, the chieftain is powerful enough that he doesn't have to show up for his own trial if he doesn't want to. And it was similar with the Romans.
Let's see. You got a lot of questions on here, so we're definitely over time today. If you haven't figured it out, which is really good because Nikki got up for this all the way in New Zealand. Nella says there's a lot of evidence that the language of lower classes was very direct, and that shocked the collectors and led to censorship of folk tales. I kind of like that.
These folk tales, the ones I remember.
These are, now we're thinking of Asperson and Mo, which is like the Norwegian version of.
These are Norwegian folk tales, but not the ones that go into the Asbjørnsen Mo collection. But they are probably just as authentic as the other ones. Mm. But it's not the language; it's the actual substance of the story. Is so way comically over the top. I wouldn't exactly call it erotic, but the themes are extremely sexual, and dumb. I don't know how to explain it.
Princeton and Mo, that's Norwegian though, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like the Norwegian version of Grimm's fairy tales, is how I kind of describe it.
Yes, it's much the same.
We have
Asbjørnsen and
Espen
Mo,
Askeladd, is he also Asbjørnsen and Mo?
they have their version of him, but he is a character that occurs in so many
Yeah.
Norwegian folk tales that it's not even funny.
Espen Askeladd, in which translates to Espen.
But what
The
these
boy of
two
Ash.
guys do is to go around and talk to old people in what I believe it's the 1850s or 1860s, and write down their stories, their fairy tales. So they are just documenters.
Well, that's what Grimm's brothers are. The Grimm's fairy
Yes,
tales
that's
are
why
too.
they are the same.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see if we get to some more here. We did that one. Yep. Let's see. We got to that one. Is the Viking Age different from Middle Ages? Probably a dumb question, but was thinking about it the other day. Actually, you're not the only one to ask that question.
It's
But
actually
in terms of timeline, is it known? Is the known world of medieval times? Yes or no kind of thing.
it's very complicated because it depends on how you. Every country has different names for different epochs. In some countries, they consider the Viking Age to be part of the early medieval time, and in some countries, they define the medieval time to start in 1066. For instance, the English definition is that the Viking Age is part of Dark Ages, but the medieval times start in 1066 with the Norman conquest. I'm not honestly sure how the Norwegians define this, because medieval times isn't really a concept we use a lot. So in Norway it goes early Roman Iron Age, late Roman Iron Age, migration period, Viking Age. In Sweden it is similar, but the period right before the Viking Age, they call Vandal period.
Yep.
And in Denmark it's similar, but the period right before the Viking Age they call Merovingian period. Because the Merovingian dynasty is ruling in France at the time, and the Danish is mysteriously acquiring a lot of French artifacts at this time.
Yep.
Some countries define the Viking Age to be part of the part of the Dark Ages, and other people define it to be part of the medieval times. The Dark Ages isn't necessarily a period that is very bad to live in. It's called the Dark Ages because it's like, if you look at the documentation you have from the antiquity and you have from medieval times, you will notice that you have basically no documentation from the time in between. So actual, honest to God, written sources from the Viking Age are very rare. The Arabs write a lot, but they're not interacting a lot with the Vikings. The Byzantines write a lot, but they are just minusculely interacting with the Vikings. The English write a lot, but they are mostly arguing about when to celebrate Easter. This takes precedence over the fact that we are actually actively burning your country to the ground. As long as you celebrate Easter at the right time, you bastards.
Actually, Nella says it. They're agreeing with you. Actually, they're saying the ones that are answering are saying pretty much the same thing you're saying. But Nella adds, it depends on who you ask, of course. In the north, definitely, but in Italy, not so much. Where the medieval era began after the fall of Rome.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what you're saying.
It's just a matter of definition. And it wouldn't make any difference for me if the Norwegians, I honestly don't know how we define it, but it wouldn't make any difference for me if they defined the Viking Age to be part of the medieval time. Because we don't really have, I don't know a good Norwegian translation for Dark Ages, because we don't really have that concept. No. We are focused on Viking Age, because that's what interests us.
I always thought Norwegian defined the end of the Viking Age as 1066, the Battle of Stamford Bridge.
No, that's English. The Norwegian definition is that the Viking Age started in around 750 and ended at around 1100.
Okay, so
1066 is super important for the English, but
yeah.
nobody else really cares.
Okay. Well, I thought. Okay. Anyway, so I learned something new. In UK, the Middle Ages, says PJ, is from 600 to 1400s. Viking Age goes from 700s to early 1100s, an overlap, but not really the same. Yeah, that's what you just said, basically. That swirl Nalbinding looks like 3 Atlantic hurricanes merging into one Category 4, says Roger. Roger is a coastal dweller.
Ah.
So he knows what
So
hurricanes
this is
look
an
like.
early Celtic satellite image.
Yeah, we're looking for avalanches over here, but he's looking for hurricanes over there. Let's see. Novia says, oh, and by the way, Torben can't find his cattle prod charger. Sorry. Novia says, so it's like the Black Knight in Monty Python saying that losing both arms and legs is just a flesh wound. This is in reference to something earlier you were saying. No? This, well,
Yes, yeah,
yeah.
Vikings. A Viking would absolutely do that if he managed to.
Yeah.
There is a book. We have it in the store. I really want to. I really want to read it.
Which one?
It's Laughing I Shall Die.
Oh yeah, Laughing Shall I Die. It's the book is about basically the deaths
Yeah,
and fighting.
there is nothing a Viking considered to be more cool
I'll find that.
than if you die with a joke on your lips. So one example is the Skald of Saint Olaf. He is shot in the chest at the Battle of Stiklestad, and some guys manage to bring him to a hut to try to pull the arrow out and see if they can get him back on his legs. And when they pull the arrow out, a tiny bit of it's a barbed arrow, and a tiny bit of fat is hanging from one of the barbs. And he looks at it, and his last words are, "I see the king has fed me well. I'm fat around my heart." And then he dies. The Vikings consider that sort of thing to be so cool. In one of the Icelandic sagas, some people are trying to murder another guy, and for reasons, they send one of the guys to climb up on top of his roof and look down the smoke hole, the hole in the top of the roof, to see if the guy is home. And the guy is in his house, and he hears that somebody is dicking around on his roof. So he takes his Atgeir. We don't know exactly what the Atgeir is, but it's some kind of spear, probably a big one like the one I have. And he stands and he just listens until he hears that the guy is exactly above him. And then he just rams the spear through the roof and hits the guy in the chest. And the guy goes, and then he very carefully climbs back down and walks back to his friends. And the friends are looking at him and going, "Okay, was the guy home?" And he says, "I don't know if he was home or not, but his Atgeir certainly was." And then he just falls over dead.
Mm.
That's what the Vikings considered to be super cool.
Last weekend, Peruta visited a local castle built during the Swedish deluge, if I said that right. Of course, it existed as a wooden fort before that.
Probably if it's on a strategic.
Yeah, maybe.
The Swedish deluge. That's
A lot of the castles are not what I would expect look like castles in Sweden.
that's.
It's like big houses.
No, but this isn't in Sweden. This is in Poland. I'm almost 100% sure.
Sorry. Yeah.
The Swedish deluge is.
Well, and she's in
It's
Poland.
basically a three-sided. She can probably tell me more about it than I can, but the way I understand it, it's really, really unlucky to be Polish, because this happened in Poland and Lithuania when you have the. It's kind of related to the 30-year war, if I remember correctly. So you have Swedish, Cossacks, Polish, and everybody else is just sending their armies into this area and burning everything down.
I didn't even know what to expect, but that's not what I thought it was when I looked it up. A series of mid 17th century military campaigns in the Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth. In a wider sense, it applies to the period between the, oh my god, I can't pronounce that word, something uprising of 1648 and the Truce of Andrusovo in 1667. Anyway, and it keeps going on and on and on about Polish history. There we go. In Poland and Lithuania, this period is called the Swedish Deluge, the Second Northern War, 1655 to 1660. I learned something new.
Yeah.
I did not know what that was. I was expecting to see a building and it's like a map.
Yeah, no, that's what I told you.
See, you're so smart. Okay. Let's see. Albert says the Battle of I can never pronounce that. Hafrsfjord and Stiklestad are important for Norway. Oh yeah, those are big ones.
Yeah.
That's where you've got the big monument with the swords and yeah.
I agree. If you look at actual impact on history, I agree with Hartsfjord. I'm not that. Stiklestad isn't really that important. The only really important thing that happened at Stiklestad was that St. Olav died and became a saint. But he would have become a saint if he had died in a spectacular masturbation accident.
Cattle prod.
There was no way that this guy wouldn't become a saint.
I bet it was charged. I'm sorry. Been on too long. No, okay. Let's see. Max says maybe there's some genetic variation and differences between the Celts and the Vikings, apparently.
Yeah, but it's not so much genetics as linguistics.
Yeah.
The cultural thing, the language groups, and cultural distinction you have, for instance, between Celt and German, isn't necessarily genetic at all, because these people will happily bang anything that moves. So genetically, most people in the border regions are a mix about both. But take in Julius Caesar's time, the line is the Rhine. You have Germans on this side, and you have Gauls on this side. The Romans absolutely suck as anthropologists, but they actually kind of do their best for their time.
Yeah.
The problem is that their time is 2,000 years ago. So their distinction is basically that, okay, the Gauls have mustaches and not beards, and they will not wear animal furs. The Germans have both mustaches and beards and will happily wear animal furs. That's the distinction. Obviously, the language is completely different, and the way Julius Caesar describes the Germans, they kind of sound like aliens. They sound like an existential threat. One of the things he says about them, and I can see how this could theoretically be true, considering how violent these people are, is that they consider it a mark of honor. How big the area of dead land between their villages and everything else is, because they actively try to destroy everything that is near them. I think Caesar might have been exaggerating a little bit, but these are not peaceful people.
Torben, did someone say prod? And then Nikki says, by the way, watched another live channel with crafting. She was cheating on us. But she says, not as fun, no beer, and I missed you guys and Karl. Yeah, they got crafts, but we got Karl. And cattle prods. And innuendos. And Viking kings dying of masturbation. I'm pretty sure that's not what happened.
No, we know exactly how he died. It's almost as detailed as we know how Julius Caesar died.
Oh, okay.
We know from all the reliquaries and that he was cut on the neck, and he was stabbed up between under his chainmail and into his groin with a spear, and he was chopped with an axe about here. That we know, because they always draw it like that.
Yeah.
And that's also how it comes out in Snorre's Kongesagaer. He describes pretty much step by step how it happened.
So maybe he was. I was going to say, I have to ask, because I...
So no, I do not believe that Olav Haraldsson died in a masturbation accident.
Not for kids. Um, Celtics and Viking age. There is something that I always did wonder about. I never looked it up, and I should. There's an extreme similarity in art between the Vikings and the Celts.
Yeah, because
Norse, I should say. Norse and
they
Celts.
live next to each other practically.
Yep.
Because at least the Vikings will happily sail to the Celts to buy shit
Yep.
from them. So they are in contact. This comically stupid idea that the Vikings have no idea about the world around them. Noticeably in the TV series Vikings, but the Vikings are going, huh, are there something to the west? Boo. No, they know exactly. Obviously they have a much more detailed idea of both the world around them in the end of the Viking Age than they do in the beginning. But these people have been trading with the Mediterranean area forever. Since the glory days of the Roman Republic. These people know that England exists. They know that the Angles and the Saxons took England from the Britons and the Romans. They know all this. They travel and trade with these people. They kind of have to. Because there is a lot of cool shit you can't make or produce up here. So their idea of their place in the world is probably a lot more, well, it's clearly a lot more detailed than the people who made Vikings understood it to be. Either that or the Vikings are the luckiest sons of bitches in the universe because they just coincidentally sailed to England and by a straight up coincidence they landed on the richest monastery on the coast, Lindisfarne. No, I'm damn sure that in the summer before 793, so the summer of 792, there was probably some pilgrims at the monastery at Lindisfarne who was speaking in an odd dialect and was going, I was just wondering about this reliquary. Is it actually made out of silver? And then they come back next year and the reliquary ends up as the jewelry casket of some woman in Bergen.
I'm just writing something down here. Okay, yeah, because Nella says also a lot of similar art is also affected by similar materials as well as the rules on wood carving and bone carving, for example. And there's a really good book I like by Jonas Markusson. It's called The Anatomy of Viking Art, and they kind of go into the whole rule of put a head on it or a tail, have it go over and under, is it biting as its tail, things like that. And you'll see he's also does Celtic art as well, or Celtic art. He covers that as well. But
Yeah.
his blog is really good, and you'll recognize a lot of the stuff that I paint and embroider comes from his page. You can like make a donation to his Patreon account and use his work.
Some anthropologists can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but my impression is that you have some cultures that are open-minded, and you have some cultures that are completely closed off to foreign ideas. The Romans, for instance, they are normally closed off, but they will accept a foreign idea if it is super good. I think both the Vikings and the Celts would happily accept an idea that they see somebody else use if it works.
Yeah.
They have a pragmatic idea about things. Does your art look cool? Then we'll make art like that.
Yeah, did they maybe bring some of it back and kind of get inspired, or vice versa, leave some of it behind?
They meet each other on the regular.
Yeah.
So it's like Norwegians, when they try to make movies, if they have half a brain cell, they're trying to make it in the American style. Because Americans know how to make movies.
Yeah, we just have a happy ending for everything.
Not necessarily,
No,
but
there's a couple exceptions.
the problem with the way Norwegians,
And we
to
blow stuff
some
up.
extent still, but at least used to make movies, is that you use cinematic language in a way that is absolutely insane. And so horrendously boring that nobody can actually stand to watch a Norwegian movie.
This is true.
So say that you want to convey the idea that your main character is a little bit bored and very tired. In an American movie, you will have him get out of bed like this. Oh. And then he sees cool things and doesn't react to them. In a Norwegian movie, you show a valley full of fog. For 6 minutes straight. Then you show a extreme close-up of his left eye that blinks slowly. And then you show that he hasn't made up his bed. So 10 minutes later, you have explained that your main character is a little bit bored and annoyed.
The sad thing is you're not wrong.
I'm
He's
not.
actually quite correct.
I am.
It's a little bit more artistic, or you just get to the bloody point.
Yes, the thing is, if something works, other people, no matter how resistant they are, will start doing it. If your culture is somewhat open-minded and you accept input from this source. So I keep ending up talking about the Romans when I'm supposed to be talking about Vikings. But there are two great examples of actually good ideas that other people have that the Romans just straight up refuse to embrace. Pants and barrels. The Romans want togas and amphorae. Just imagine how unpractical it is to transport any kind of liquid in an amphora compared to transporting it in a barrel. And they considered pants to be almost the sign of uncivilized barbarity.
So Nordic noir is so popular right now.
When Caesar made a whole bunch of Gauls senators, Cicero is making a speech against him, and he says, "Can you imagine the sight when all the Gauls come to the forum, take off their stinking pants and put on the toga and ask, 'Where is the Senate?'" They just don't like pants. So even when the Romans are in places that are very cold, they will happily wear socks, but no pants.
Brutus says
That's for
trousers are
barbarians.
obviously barbaric. I like that one. By the way, actually, speaking of pants, this actually comes up every once in a while, and maybe it's out of your realm, but we get women, Viking women, who want to come and they want to wear pants instead. I mean, is it okay if I come with a tunic and pants? You know, like maybe 1 out of every 20 will want to do that, and actually, we're quite okay with that. But is there any find that they only wore dresses, or do we have women that were found wearing pants too?
You couldn't.
I mean, it's much more plausible when it comes to work on the farm and things.
You couldn't possibly have a find that proved that something was never done.
No, I mean, do we have a find where it was? You know, Viking female grave or something with.
As far
Well, there's so few clothing found, so I guess it's kind of a stupid question for me. But
it's very unlikely that something like that exists.
yeah, I was gonna say, but even drawings
They are never detailed enough in their drawings that you can tell the gender of the character.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So
I was just curious about that. We do allow it. Yeah, we have no problem with it at all. Because if they're fighting, riding horseback, whatever, any of these things, pants are much more functional. So we're okay with it. And so there's.
I don't know.
I'm just curious anyway.
I don't see how this can be proven one way or another unless you find a woman's grave with pants.
Yeah. Did the Vikings do leg wraps? Yeah.
Yes.
That we can see in carvings and statues and things. What do they call Wendigos? Wendigos is one name for it. Leg wraps is another name. Leg bindings is another name. Okay. Roger has a good question. A question I have to read. I'll take this away from you, you coughing bastard. Roger asks, did Vikings fight with punches or primarily with swords against defenseless cabbage heads? There is research that beards reduced the force impact of a face punch. Okay, would you like to address the cabbage head thing?
The what now?
He remembers when you were taking on cabbages with an hot guy. Okay, I'll read it one more time here because you were coughing up a lung. Did Vikings fight with punches or primarily with swords against defenseless cabbage heads? There is research that beards reduced the force impact of a face punch, and he's got a bunch of emojis. Oh God, we gotta open up emojis one of these days.
A tiny little bit. This will give you a little bit of protection against an attack to your face.
Oh, that's a good
But I would say that the advantage is smaller than the disadvantage.
Yeah.
And the disadvantage...
You want to cough a bit? I'll show my stitch again. Chug-a-lug. I gotta tell you, the vodka is much more effective on a cough.
And the disadvantage with having a bear in a fight is pretty self-evident.
Handlebar.
It's something your opponent can grab onto, and you don't want that in a fight.
Did Vikings have pockets? That's actually a really good question.
As far as I know, no.
I don't think we have any finds with a pocket in it.
There is no finds of pockets until surprisingly light. I think it's like 1700s.
And does that come along the same time as his purses? And no, we knew they had bags. Like they had to be big and
Purses and bags are much older.
Yeah, and pouches and yeah, but pockets on the other hand, I don't think I know of any that would. I have no idea what the history of pockets is anyway either. When they would come. Then let's see. We got a few more here. Hold this one up because I got to read close. I wonder if the Hisatsinum, I'm not sure if I'm reading that right. It's from Max. I wonder if the Hisatsinum did some Nalbinding. Hisatsinum is a Hopi term of the ancestors of Puebloan tribes of the southwest region of the United States. And then, Hisatsinum is said to be, that's a really hard one for me to say. Hisatsinum is said to be a correct term referring to the ancestors of Hopi, Tewa, and other Puebloan descendants. The term Anasazi is considered outdated and offensive to some of the Puebloan people that I've actually heard as well. And then Nella had an answer a little bit. Ancient Pueblo left a lot of Nalbinding behind them. This would be probably around Arizona, New Mexico area, I'm thinking, because that's where the Hopi are. The Hopi have Kokopelli, by the way, one of my favorite Native American characters. Anyway, continue. Simple looping is almost exclusively, possibly some loop and twist. That's referring to the Nalbinding. But did you have any thoughts on that? Or is this completely out of your crafting realm?
I know too little about these people to say anything about them, really.
No, I was gonna
have a mental image. I kind of have a mental image of buildings where the roof of one building is like the porch of the next.
Yeah, and they're built out of stone.
I know very little. I know very little about them, so I shouldn't be.
A long time ago, I think before I even considered moving to Norway, that's about how long ago, I read a series of books. One was called She Who Remembers, and I always thought that character was kind of interesting. She Who Remembers, it was her job to remember all things from the past and tell the stories on to another, and then that title would be passed.
Write shit down, you idiots.
Well, the Vikings weren't good at it either.
No, and it pisses me off so much you have no idea.
Okay, and then there was another one. My favorite Hopi character is Kokopelli. Kokopelli being the mischief maker, or he's also very good at bringing fertility to women. Women would go and seek Kokopelli, the blue-eyed Indian, Hopi Indian. One of the things they would do is would seek him out because they heard that he could help them with fertility. He was like almost like a fertility god in that respect. But anyway, kind of makes you wonder how many blue-eyed Indian American Indians or Native Americans were born with blue eyes anyway because of but he's the one that's got the wild hair and he's depicted with a flute or a piccolo of some sort, and he's my favorite. But I do prefer the title The Mischief Maker. So I probably just ticked off a whole bunch of people by telling the story wrong, but that is Hopi, I believe.
Now, if you think that blue-eyed people make you more fertile, you're more likely to bang blue-eyed people, so you can probably kind of counteract the fact that the blue-eyed gene is recessive and not dominant.
Well, apparently, and according to this book that I read...
So by this logic, you should have like a fuckload of blue-eyed Indians.
Not to mention, I'm pretty sure the book I read was fiction. But anyway, it was just, women would go and see Kokopelli because if they were having fertility issues. And a large amount of them had no problem getting pregnant after that.
Then he just blows out their pipes.
It's possible. I don't know, but I love Kokopelli. I think he's a great guy. Let's see. Torben said, this gin is making me thirsty and a bit fuzzy. Now, where did I put that prod? It's the running theme of today's episode. It's the cattle prod. Karl, did they have cattle prods in the Viking Age? And what would be the closest thing to it?
Some kind of whip, but
Whip?
not necessarily an ox whip.
You
but
wouldn't think a spear struck by lightning?
no, you want to cause compliance. You don't want to cause death.
Oh, well, maybe it wasn't a very powerful lightning.
If I poke somebody very gently with my spear, they'll probably die. And I might not want that.
Torben says, Albert, leave the prod alone while under the influence of alcohol. Max says, yeah, Nella's got some answers in there too. Simple looping almost exclusively, possibly some loop and twist. And then Max says, you've got a good point, Nella. I think yucca and agave may be some very sturdy and durable. And some other plants like bast fiber, something similar. You need to check out Sally Pointer's YouTube channel on YouTube anyway. Max, you should check it out. She does a lot with plant fibers. That's why I wanted to go to her course. Obviously, I could do the simple looping and things like that, but I wanted to learn more about plant fiber, and hers is great on that. So she also covers things like yucca and agave and which fibers would work really well and which don't. But she's got some great things, and that's where you see the loop and the twist, or this one, simple looping around a core.
The Yeti thing was much better than this.
Yeah, so you didn't like the Draug?
It's not bad, but it's not on the level of the Yeti thing.
It's not Jedi level, according to
It's not
Jay.
Jedi level.
Jay, I'm sorry. The Draug beer, which is backwards for you, I'm so sorry. Draug. It was not Jedi level. I'm so sorry. But Karl, I think we should probably get going here. So before you take off, you should come and say goodbye. Victorian ages had pockets, says Nikki, that sat on a belt under the skirt, and they had holes in their skirts to get to them. I wonder if the similar idea existed. And then there's a lot of things about they're asking maternity, for breastfeeding and such. Did they have something like that as a solution in Viking clothing? And there is a dress that kind of overlaps in the front like this, or a type of cellular. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that correctly, but I believe there's one that's found where it's kind of overlapping like that. That would be more easily accessible to that. Then the other thing, you have the opening of the apron dresses. The opening is actually here with like a brooch to hold it together. So that would be easier to hoist these things down or these things up. But that was something that was quite interesting and on the same wave as pockets, but not quite pockets. PJ says, I need to chuck some water around the allotment. I have about a half an hour before sunset. Hope to catch you guys next week. Yeah, next week we should be here. It will be 6:30. If we can get, we should try to send from the village now that it's getting lighter. But it all depends on when we get some transportation back anyway. But hopefully we can. We've got some games and things that they're going to do for the kids there. They're going to be doing archery contests, axe throwing contests, of course, and these we cannot do during opening hours because the customers have the first right to the axes and the arrows. And then we're going to try to find some other competitions. There will be an Easter egg hunt that will also be outside of Viking opening hours because Easter egg hunting is not very Viking, but we need to do something like that. No, my car is in, I actually do have a car, but it's in Vestby. It's been to be repaired and it's been stuck there ever since for about the last year. So I took the plates off of it and unregistered it until it can come back again. So nope, but it's about a 45-minute walk back, which is not too fun to do on a highway as it's dusk. For kids instead of not for kids. Sounds so fun. Both of you. But yeah, so we'll try to find some fun things we can do with the kids. I have to give a presentation of the things that I learned when I was in England. So we'll be doing a presentation on sprung, which is basically it's my best way of doing it is by demonstrating what they can do. We don't have any plant fibers around here that have grown enough to try to make anything with it. So my idea is to demonstrate it with newspaper. You can actually look this up, how to make newspaper yarn. It's kind of cool, but you can have long, thin strips of newspaper and you can, it's like you twist forward and then back and forward and back and make a rope with it. So I think I will show them how to do that, and later they can see if they can find some plant fibers to try it with. Excuse me, burping. And of course, then I have to show them sprung as well. So one day we will go with the cordage crafts, and maybe they can try this with their needle binding. And then the next day we'll learn sprung, and hopefully they can try their hand on it without too much. But it's not necessarily a course. But this we're doing for free for the freemen and the employees, and then later on we can offer it as a proper course. But right now we need to test run me on somebody, so this is how we're going to do it. Anyway, I was talking about the sprung, but that's on Friday and Thursday, so that they have the rest of their Easter break to try to play with it a little bit and ask questions if they do. But Saturday should not be a problem. There will be some competitions, but I'll get someone to take over that. It would be nice to send from the village if we can find a way back after that, though. But then again, we do at 6:30 so that people have time to run to the store, make their dinner real quick. And what do you think?
I'm pretty much done with the village when I spent that hours in it.
Yeah, I know you are. So we'll see, but we'll try to figure something else. But I think we're gonna stick with 6:30 for a while as a starting time, because it seems to be working. Today I went oh shit at 5:45 and realized I forgot to make a link. I forgot it was Saturday. Fuck. Anyhow. Prod you later, folks, says Torben. Wait, is Norway like Africa? My family in Africa waited more than a year to fix their car because their workers were drunk, says Nikki. No, it's because the people that I bought my car from has a pre-existing clause they have to fix. I bought it in the Oslo side of Norway in the east, and I'm 6.5 hours, 7 hours over here in the west, and it's a bit of a long, bitchy story that's going to involve lawyers.
Are like Africa.
Yeah, these guys, I might actually have to sue them. So, but it's a long story, and I don't want to get into it now. But basically, they owe me a car. So, anyhow, do you want to say goodbye, Karl? And then we'll see you next week at 6:30. We shouldn't have any problem with that.
No, by crook 6:40.
By hook or by crook. You want to cough some more?
I will do.
Okay, we will see you next week. Thanks for playing with us. We only went 2 hours. It's perfect. Okay, bye bye. Oh, I can't hit the button.